AM 590, KXSP Omaha's ESPN Radio. It's time for the Metro's only racing talk show. The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Buddy Ray.
Well, good morning, race fans, and welcome to the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Get to joeskarting.com, that's karting with a K, the newly renovated joeskarting.com. Talking today with the series promoter for the Good Old Time Racing Association, or better known as the GOTRA Series, John Ferguson. John, how you doing this morning?
Oh, just living the dream.
Oh, we all are here in the Midwest. Lovely days here in the Midwest. John, appreciate you taking the time out of your morning to talk to us. If you don't mind, can you kind of talk to us about how you and Cheryl got the GOTRA Series started, the Good Old Time Racing Association? What was the start of it all?
Well, I wasn't old enough to race the Coops back when they did race, but my brother did. So I was always infatuated by him, I guess. And in 1996, before that, we raced with a group out of Sioux City, and things wasn't going quite the way we wanted, or like the way things were going up there, so we decided to start our own series. My brother, Richard, and my son, Jeff, and I were sitting out in my garage thinking we ought to do something like this in 96, and one thing led to another, and March 96, we put together what we call the Good Old Time Racing Association, and the first year we had 12 cars in the group and 9 races, and US 30 out to Columbus, Nebraska. Abe Lincoln give us our first date, and that gave me something to talk to these other track promoters about, and said if Abe was willing to take a chance on us, they should too, and they did, and we've been very blessed up to that point. So that's kind of where we all got started.
It's kind of funny how just a conversation sitting around turns into now you're a series promoter.
Yeah, for 20 years now. This is our 20th season coming up. So
it's almost old enough to drink.
Yeah, almost. It's actually, we outlasted the originals. I've always was told the original Coupe series started in about 1954 and ended at Sunset Speedway in 68, so yeah. We've actually outlasted the originals, so I don't know. I feel pretty fortunate on that.
Talk about some of the drivers that you've had over the years that have raced as a part of the Good Old Time Racing Association, some kind of the bullet point drivers that everyone will recognize.
Well, some of the more noted ones that we have in the group right now, one of them is Bill Rick, has been with us for, I don't know, I think this must be his 5th or 6th year of racing with us, and I watched Bill as a kid, and just I was awed then, and he is just as smooth now, probably smoother now as looking back on it than what he was back in the early days. But yeah, and Bill's a good asset to the group. Bobby French, who raced in Sunset area, Bobby raced with us from the time we started till 2011, and he's another one that's been busy. Luke Cochran races with us. Let's see some of the other local. That's pretty much the guys around here with bigger names. We've had Dick Gappa used to race with us, and Dick's passed on now, but he was a 69 champion down to Playland Park and this and that. So so we've had a number of locals that have been with us, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
So the goal of the Good Old Time Racing Association, is there a mandate of competitiveness, or is it just let's get out there and kind of put on a good show for the fans?
Well, we try to put on the best show possible with the least amount of contact. It's far from parading. We get accused of that because these guys are a little more conservative than maybe your average, and I'm not trying to put them down, hobby stock driver or something like that, because you just don't go and find parts for these.
Right.
Is easy. But then, and like I said, I'm not cutting any class down by any means because we need them all. But
yeah.
I think we put on a good show for, these guys are racing hard. You couldn't put a $10,000 tag out there, and these guys would race just as hard as what they do otherwise. And it's the best you're going to get out of it's bragging rights. We've kind of limited it to where we can win one trophy a year, and it just kind of spreads the hardware out a little bit, and it just gives everybody a little chance to, like I said, the best you're going to do is get a few bragging rights out of it, and it's just been a lot of fun, And when I remember the first Trophy Dash I won, I come in and the whole bunch was standing around cheering me on, clapping, and I mean, it's just something that we're competitors when we're on the track and we're friends when we're off, and that's a real important part of this, I think.
You guys do a good job. I've really enjoyed watching you guys over the years. You've come to Crawford County Speedway a couple of times, and I've seen you at I-80, and it's a lot of fun because and I apologize if I may be miscategorizing you, but it's a little bit like the WWE where there's going to be some competitive racing, but they're also not going to damage anything. And, it's fun more than it is competitive, and it's kind of fun to watch these guys go out there. And I'll tell you, you've talked about the competitive side of it, and I kind of downplayed it a little bit. There's been times where I've seen guys shoot the gaps that a BMOD driver won't do that, but these guys will do that because they're out there having fun.
Yeah, and they pretty well know who they're out there with. I mean, and that's the thing. In order to be part of this group, and maybe I have more expectations of the people than other groups, but it's one of those deals. We make them go to a spring meeting. We have all kinds of, we inspect the cars. We do all this and that, and it's just trying to make that people can trust who they're out there with.
Let's talk about the 2015 race schedule. Well, we got a few minutes left in the break, or before we got to get to break. I apologize for cutting you off there. But let's talk about that 2015 race schedule. When does it start? And let's kind of go through some of the big races that people can come out and watch the GOTRA Series race.
Well, actually, our series starts April 4th this year at Butler County Speedway. And then we're out to Junction the 25th of April, US 30 on May 3rd. May 30th at Butler County again, June 7th at US 30, go up to South Dakota at Raceway Park on Father's Day, the 21st of June, Butler County again on the 11th of July, Beatrice, their Hall of Fame night on July 17th, US 30 August 2nd, the 22nd at Butler County again, Junction September 12th, US 30 on the 18th for the Abe Lincoln Memorial. The 19th of September, we're at I-80 for the Fall Brawl. And this year, we're bringing back out the Cornhusker Vintage Nationals October 3rd and 4th for any vintage car 1975 or older. It's just an open event deal.
And where's that track at? Or where's that race at again?
That's at US 30 at Columbus, Nebraska.
That's right. I remember we talked to Mary Melcher about that a couple of weeks ago, so thanks for reminding me about that. Is there a place people can go to, maybe a Facebook page, Dirt Drivers, that the series schedule will be posted soon if it hasn't been already?
Yeah, it'll definitely be. Well, I'm still working on the schedule. I'm looking at probably adding I've got 13 races lined up, and I'm probably going to end up with another 5 to 8 races that I'm still working on. I'm hoping to have the majority of it put together, by the middle to the latter part of January. So, we've got a Facebook page under the Good Old Time Racing Association, and my wife's on that. I'm pretty computer illiterate, so I just. But we are on Facebook, and we do post our stuff on Dirt Drivers, and we do have in the series column, we do have a Good Old Time Racing Association on there.
Talking with John Ferguson of the Good Old Time Racing Association, the GOTRA Series. John, any thoughts about banning the outlaw Luke Cochran again this year? I know he's been he's a bit of a handful sometimes.
Banning him? No, Luke's a good asset. He sometimes he doesn't quite get our way of thinking, but no, Luke's a good guy. I mean, he's very knowledgeable.
I'm just
we had a lot of fun with Luke, but he'd like to think he's a bigger outlaw than he is, probably. But
Luke comes on the show quite a bit, so I got to give him a hard time. And I like the word you used. He is an asset.
An asset, exactly.
John Ferguson of the Good Old Time Racing Association. Check out dirtdrivers.com. Go onto the message boards, and down at the bottom of the series, there is the GOTRA Series. They'll post the schedule for the 2015 race series in a few weeks. Appreciate your time, John, and you have a great rest of your weekend.
You bet. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Have a good one, sir.
You bet. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a break. We will be back in turn number 2. This is the Front Stretch presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
This is Andrew from Kaziski Auto Parts. Kaziski Auto Parts is an insurance-quality used parts supplier that can match your foreign or domestic car or truck needs. If you have a damaged or broke-down car or truck, we guarantee a clean and quality part in next-day fashion. Kaziski Auto Parts, your neighborhood premium recycled parts supplier. Call any Kaziski Auto Parts salesman today by dialing 402-731-4592 or visit us at 5040 I Street in Omaha. Kaziski Auto Parts. Our quality used parts will match your car or truck's needs.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
We're working the high line into turn 2 on the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting, online at joeskarting.com.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch. Appreciate you sticking around on your Sunday morning, and I appreciate John Ferguson of the GOTRA series joining us the last turn. Still to come, we've got about 10 minutes before Mark Nobel joins Lee Ackerman and I to continue the Legends of the Dirt series. Wanted to give you a little bit of a scheduling update. Next weekend, we'll talk with Willie Kraft as a part of the Legends of the Dirt series. I'm also working on a couple of interviews, trying to get Lee Ackerman's son, Tom Ackerman, to come join us and talk about the what's going on over at Brad Keselowski Racing in the Truck Series. And then February 1st will be the first Playland Speedway show. That's a 1-hour show we recorded down at Quaker Steak and Lube. We actually recorded for 2 full hours. So the first hour will be on February 1st. That's Super Bowl Sunday. And then the next weekend, February 8th, we'll play Playland Speedway show number 2. That'll be the second hour that we recorded. A lot of great stories, a lot of great people that joined us. And just, we sat around a microphone and we told stories. We had a good time down at Quaker Steak and Lube in September. And so if you happen to have joined us, then you can tune in to the final recording that airs February 1st and February 8th. Now, keep in mind, there is a slight possibility those 2 shows will get bumped back a weekend because, like I mentioned, February 1st, that's Super Bowl Sunday. Sometimes ESPN likes to do a special Mike and Mike show for the Super Bowl, so we might get bumped that weekend. It happened 2 years ago. It didn't happen last year, so we don't know quite yet if that's going to happen, but I'll keep you up to date with the promos that run here on ESPN throughout the week so that you can make sure to tune in. Now, let's talk 2015 Pick'ems contest rules. We finally finalized the rules packages, so we're ready to release them. And there's some slight modifications, but for the most part, the basics of it all is going to stay the same. I'll be completely honest. We needed to modify the rules a little bit because of the way that Sonia whooped up on all those boys and just absolutely ran away with the old rules contest. So what we basically did was gave everybody a shot to be able to make it the last 10 races. We copied the 2013 NASCAR Sprint Cup chase format. I want to stress this, not the 2014, which they just rolled out, which did the 3 elimination rounds every 3 races in the chase. We're going to follow the 2013, which is those who qualify for the chase, the final 10 races get reset to a higher bracket. They're going to compete by themselves. The lower ones that did not qualify for the chase, they could still compete and they could still battle for 16 on back, and they could still win prizes, but they're just not going to be able to battle for the championship. So here's the rules. Same as last year. Contestants must have your contestants must have your picks in via email to frontstretch590@gmail.com. You can't Facebook it to me. You can't message it to the Front Stretch. You can't post it on the Front Stretch because I take the timestamp from all the emails and make sure everyone's emails are in before the green flag waves. So you got to have those picks in before to me at frontstretch590@gmail.com. And by the way, why don't you go ahead and just pull up your email right now and send me an email and get into this contest. It's absolutely free. You do not pay a penny to be a part of this. Nobody paid a penny to be a part of it last year, and they had a great time by winning prizes, autographed pennants from Rusty Wallace, Dylan Wisniewski, Ty Dillon, Darrell Wallace, What else did we get? Iowa Speedway tickets, I-80 Speedway tickets. We've got pit passes and pit tours in the pits at I-80 Speedway for a couple of the big races. We had tickets down to Kansas. We had AJ Allmendinger autographs and Kyle Larson autographs, and nobody paid a penny. So just send me an email, frontstretch590@gmail.com. Make sure you get qualified. Make sure you get reserved to be a part of the Pick'ems contest. All right, so back to the rules. Contestants must have their picks into frontstretch590@gmail.com before the green flag waves. You cannot get it to me after the green flag waves. The reason why I do this is because something may happen on lap 1 that could dramatically change your pick. So, got to be in by green flag. Now, I want to clarify what green flag means, even though it's pretty simple. Let's say it's raining that day, and NASCAR starts the race with a green-yellow flag waving. Doesn't happen very often, but it's happened sometimes where they just need that extra assistance of the cars going around the track to help dry it off and get it race ready. That green flag waved, picks are locked. If it is a rain delay, no green flag, we have delayed the race by an hour, 2 hours, 2 days, what have it, the picks are not locked yet. As soon as that green flag waves, the picks are locked. It's pretty plain and simple. Now, again, I want to stress, you can't go any other route of getting me the pick unless it's got to be by Gmail, it's got to be by email. So get it into me at frontstretch590@gmail.com. Go ahead and add it right now. If contestants do not get their picks in before the green flag waves, they will not receive any points for that weekend's race. Also, contestants, when you pick a driver, you are picking them to take their championship driver points. Now, you may not necessarily be picking a driver because you think they're going to win that race, because a lot of strategy comes into this as the season goes on. So you got to pick your driver that you think will get you the most points that is still available to you. And by still available to you, I mean that contestants can only pick the same driver twice during the regular season, from points paying race number 1 at Daytona to points paying race number 26 at Richmond. And then all contestants get one more chase pick back from race number 27 to race number 36 at Homestead. So last year, you could only pick a driver twice the entire season. We're doing it twice during the regular season and once during the regular season. Also, it brings up a question of, what if I pick Jeff Gordon at Richmond and then I get him back to pick him one more time at the start of the chase? Then you can, because the old rule was you can only pick a driver once in 5 races. That is still the same when it comes to picking them during the regular season, but once the chase starts, that rule goes away for 5 races. So you've got a 5-race window there that you could pick a driver again within that 5-race win. So if you've got any questions on that section of rules, frontstretch590@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. I'd be glad to clarify for you. The first 26 points-paying races, if you happen to pick a race-winning driver, you automatically qualify. Now, last year, we only had 7 contestants that had picked race-winning drivers by the time the chase started at race number 27 in Chicagoland. So the remaining positions that are not filled by automatic qualifiers will be filled by points. So as you're racking up your points, even though you're not getting wins, you could still make it into the chase. Keep in mind, this year, we're going to take Matt Kenseth, for instance. He was the highest ranked driver in the point standings that did not have a win. So he got into the chase, and he was able to compete, even though he didn't have a win. So it'll be the same thing here, where the first 26 races, even though you don't have a win, get as many points as you can, because you could still qualify for the chase. When the chase starts, the final 10 races of the season, 15 contestants will compete for the Pick'ems Contest Championship, and those 15 contestants will be bumped up to 2,000 points so that they're separated from 16 on back. And that's it. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Get your picks into me by the time the green flag waves at frontstretch590@gmail.com. Make sure your picks are eligible. I will do my best to communicate to you if you have picked somebody that is not eligible, but it is up to you to know who you've picked. And frankly, I think I communicated very well with everybody as far as sending out weekly updates on who picked who, where you're at in the rankings, who's left, and statistical sheets and everything. I send out a ton of information to you all week long so that you've got everything at your disposal to be able to pick the right drivers and to make sure you can pick those drivers. It's a lot of fun. It's absolutely free, and you get to win a ton of prizes. Now, as far as prizes are concerned, sorry, it's still early. I'm working on getting everything completely secured, but I wanted to get the rules out. I wanted to get this out in advance so that way you guys had time to send me an email, frontstretch590@gmail.com. Get to be a part of the absolutely free NASCAR Pick'ems contest presented by the Front Stretch. So send me an email today and get locked in for the Pick'ems contest, and you won't pay a penny to be a part of it. Later on down the road, as we get closer to Daytona, I will be talking about what prizes are available and how the 5-week contests are going to work, because we're going to do it a little bit different this year. We're going to do 2 separate contests. There's going to be the season-long contest, and there's going to be the 5-week contest. That way, those that are locked into the season-long contest don't have to change their strategy if they're trying to win prizes for the races coming up for the 5-week contest. So, important to remember that. All right, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back in turn number 3 to talk to Mark Nobel for the Legends of the Dirt Series. We'll be back. This is the Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Max I. Walker has been providing great service to the Omaha area for nearly 100 years. With 23 convenient locations, it's easy to find a Max I. Walker near you. From dry cleaning to laundry to uniform rentals, Max I. Walker is here to make sure you look your best. Max I. Walker has been a proud supporter of local dirt track racing since 1974. From Sunset Speedway to Adams County Speedway and legends of the dirt like Dave Chase, Glenn Roby, Ron Tilley, and so many more. Give Max I. Walker a call today or head to maxiwalker.com. Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
Time to grab another tear-off and make your move. We're headed into Turn 3 on the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting.
Heading into turn number 3 here on the Front Stretch. Time to kick off the Legends of the Dirt Series for today. We are joined by a man known as Mark Nobel. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, you're welcome, I'm glad you called me.
Mark, we're having you on the show because you're one of these guys that could easily be considered a legend in our series, in our little lovely world of dirt racing. So could you build a picture for me as to how dirt racing got started for you?
Well, I grew up with it, actually. My dad, Dave, he raced, and as long as I can remember, watching him, and then I just grew up with it. And when I was young, which is 8 to 15, all I wanted to do was race cars, because my dad did it a lot, and he was pretty good at it. So I always thought, man, if I could just race like him or be a little better, I'd be somebody. But so I just grew up with it, and back then I started racing in 1973. So, back then, you didn't have the young drivers at 12, 13, 14, whenever they start now. I had to wait till I was 16 to actually go in the pits with my dad and start driving, So when I turned 16, which was in 73, I started racing. My dad had a 57 Chevy. It was already a race car, so I started working on that, and he really didn't want me to do it, It's not like he pushed me into doing it. I started doing it, and he was kind of bucking me with it, I guess, and I just kept doing it. And, I was working on the car, getting it ready to go, because I wanted to go racing, that summer. And finally, he kind of seen that I wasn't doing things right, so he just helped me do it. He says, "Oh, here, bring it." And actually, to back up a little bit, we have a small salvage yard just east of Blooming Prairie, where we live, and I was working on my car out there because he had a garage in town and stuff, and didn't really have. It was a one-stalled garage, and didn't have room for me to work on my car, and so I just started out there at salvage yard, just started working on it, and he'd come out and check on me, and he could see I wasn't doing things right. So he said, "I'll bring it into town," and I put it in the driveway, and he started helping me, and then started racing. So
did he put it to you lightly that you weren't doing things right, or was he kind of, "Oh, you got this all screwed up, boy"?
Well, no, it was both, I guess. He's pretty easygoing, the guy, and he I think deep down he wanted me to race, but he was racing himself, and he didn't want to. He wanted to help, but he didn't want to take a lot of time away, because he wanted to go race himself. And but no, yeah, he just kind of said, "No, you're not doing this right. Just bring it into town, and we'll work on it." And so it helped a lot, with him being a veteran racer himself, and I was just a 16-year-old kid wanting to go racing, and so the car, when I went to my first race, the car was set up well, for back then it was pretty stock suspensions, but
yep.
He knew a lot about spring setups and this and that, and it was a good handling, good running car, so I got into, that helped me a lot, of course, with anybody. And back, in the 70s, you built your own cars, you went if you were a Ford guy or a Chevy guy or Chrysler guy, you went out to the junkyard and found a car, if it was a Chevelle or, back then Chevelles were real popular, and that's what you put together. But, my first car was that 57 Chevy, and it was one my dad had bought from another guy used, and it was actually ready to turnkey type thing, but, he bought it real cheap, and I just had to get it kind of put together and go racing with it.
Mark, was it, when you found the car you liked, did you stick with that, or did you kind of explore around and play with different types of rides? Did you race a lot of different kinds of cars?
Oh, over the years I've raced, a lot of different cars, but, and then 73, I didn't get started racing until, it was probably the end of July, that summer. I was still in high school, and, it was just the car my dad had, so it was real convenient for me. And he worked at a Chevrolet or a Pontiac Buick dealership, so he was a Chevy guy, and, so it had a 327 in it, and my first car, it was a street stock. That was a class it was called. As nowadays I think they call them pure stocks, or they're supposed to be pretty stock. And so I raced a street stock for that summer, and then I had real good luck, but it's all going back to having somebody behind you that really knows what they're doing, I guess. So it just it was a lot easier for me, but. And then the next year, in 74, I went up to the hobby stock class, because they had the street stock, the hobby stock, and then a late model, around in southern Minnesota where I live. So I went into the hobby stock class, and then I graduated into one of my dad's old late models, which was a 67 Chevelle. So. And, I just had to put the engine in it that was legal for the hobby stock class, and they allowed a little better suspension. The street stock was just what it says, purely stock. So, then I raced hobby stock for a few years, and I think it was in the late 70s. My dad was still racing in the late models, and so I started in the winter. I think it was in 77 was when I raced with my dad in a late model. But then the fabricated front ends were just coming in. My dad and I, we built our own cars, and we took the Chevelles, and actually my first late model was a Nova, because the Camaros were coming in, and in the, like I say, the fabricated front ends. Ed Sanger, he was a pretty famous racer himself, and he's building cars and selling them to guys, and building Camaros, so they're a little lighter. And my dad bought a couple old Novas, 73 and the 74 Nova, and we built them both up. They look pretty much identical, of course, and, but they're light cars, that's, when I first started racing, we'd plate the frames and beef them up, so if you were in a crash, you survived it. And, then at that time, in the late 70s, of course, they figured out that lighter is faster. And so we built these Novas, and they were a unibody car, and we kept them that way, just built the frames onto the back and kept them as a leaf spring car. So had pretty good luck with them. But, with the other cars, the fabricated front ends coming in, it's kind of hard to compete with them after a couple of years in the early 80s, and stuff, because then we were just kind of forced into it, getting a bought-in car type thing. But I only raced late models with my dad for, a couple of years, maybe 3. And, like I say, when the cost, even back then, every year it seems like it cost a little more. And, and I was on the late model just locally around here and with them and doing okay. But I think it was in 80 even. I went a whole year without winning a feature, and I was pretty upset. And, and I thought, guys, I'm not going to do this. I can't afford it, and this and that. And then and I wanted to keep racing and move on. That's what I love to do. And the Elko Speedway up by the Twin Cities, was an asphalt track, and they had their late model class was. It was called late models, but it was a pretty limited late model class, and and I just thought to myself, man, I want to go racing. If I want to go somewhere and do something, I got to get into the asphalt, and and hopefully somebody would see that I can drive a car, and maybe I can go on race and move on from there. So,
did you have aspirations to go race up in NASCAR?
Oh yeah, that's that's like I say, when I watched my dad race, I wanted to be a race car driver, and then I was real fortunate. My first year in that street stock, my very first race, I was late. I was having trouble loading the car I had borrowed a guy's trailer, and I was having trouble loading the thing onto the trailer, and my dad we were in a hurry to get going. He was loaded, and he told me, just leave it home, you're not ready. And I told him, no, I'm going. And so I went to the race, and in fact, I missed the heat race. And so I had to start in the back of the B feature, which there was 24 cars in that B feature. And, of course, I was a young kid, and I was scared to death. Pulled on the track, and it was already dark out already, and, it's a whole different world once you pull onto the track than sitting there watching it. And
yeah.
But the car runs so good, I had good luck. I won my first race, and I'd come from the back and won it, and so I got to start in the back of the A feature that night, and I remember I got up to 4th in the A. So, and even that first year, I was pretty fortunate to win quite a few features and stuff. But yeah, ever since then, I guess I wanted to race, and I had dreams of going NASCAR, but I didn't have no idea how to do it, and so I figured if I raced asphalt, up at Elko and stuff, maybe somebody will see me and I'll get a chance, but, and it went okay there. I run there 2 years is all on just asphalt, and they had a little point series between Elko Raceway and then Raceway Park is in Shakopee, which is a suburb of the Twin Cities, and so I raced 2 nights a week on the asphalt, and actually I won a couple features, that first year, and then okay, I think I finished 3rd in points, but the second year I was doing real well, and I was leading the points. They have a series, the track point series, plus the a combination between the 2 tracks, and I was leading I think I was second at one at Elko and 3rd at Raceway Park in points, but I was leading the overall points. And now I remember it was like 2 races left, 2 weeks left, and I pulled onto the track at Raceway Park for the feature, and a broken axle. Back then, of course, all I had was a Ford 9-inch and stuff, what we had in the cars, and my dad and I grew up being Chevy people or GM. He had the Pontiac Oldsmobile type rear ends in the car. So I pull onto the track for the feature, and a broken axle, I could feel it, and I didn't have time to do anything about it. In fact, I was going around, and I knew I had a broken axle. Well, the darn thing on the left rear, the axle froze right into the hub because it broke, and it was grinding and spinning, and I couldn't even start that feature, and then I ended up second in points overall. But that's it was fun, because being a dirt track racer and then going up there, and my dad knew a lot of the guys, and then I got to know them and stuff. But they'd always call me Dirtball because I come from dirt track racing. But there's a lot of good memories and stuff, And then I spent a couple of years up there, and I was just racing, and I didn't pick up any what I thought was going to be big sponsors or meet the people that were going to take me somewhere. And so I just went back. I come back to dirt track racing, and actually, that's about when I first seen the IMCA modifieds. It was in the early '80s because I come back racing some dirt track stuff with my dad, and I remember we were in Cresco, Iowa, racing, and they had the IMCA modifieds there. The very early ones when they had Vega bodies and Pinto bodies, and they were pretty crude looking, but we were pitted right next to Jack Mitchell. He's from Cedar Falls, Iowa, and he was probably the winningest IMCA driver at the time, so we were pitted next to him, and I didn't know Jack from anybody, but, as the years went on, we got to be really good friends, but he'd won that night, and he'd come over after the race, and they start taking his engine out, and I asked him, I go, what are you doing, and he said, I got my engine claimed, I got to take it out, and I'm thinking, man, this isn't no good. But, after talking to him and seeing the class, I think it's probably 2 years later, that's when I started running the modifieds, just because of the cost of it. It was so much cheaper to race, and and I just wanted to keep racing. So
when you were racing your dirt late model, how much of an influence did your dad have over you? I mean, you've mentioned him quite a few times already in just this first break, but how much of an influence did your dad, Dave Noble, have over you?
Oh, a lot. Like I said, I watched him race and drive, and he's, I'm not bragging, he was good. He was very good, and he'd come from the back because he's usually the point leader or real high in points, so the point leaders had to start in the back, and he won a lot of races. And, so I really watched him close how he raced and stuff. And then, of course, on the suspension, he taught me a lot. It's a lot different now with the 4 bars and all that, but back with the stock suspension and stuff, he just taught me a lot on how to set up a car and how to what makes it turn good or go forward good or whatever. But he definitely had a lot of influence on me, my racing.
Was there ever a point that, and it comes in every son's life, when he feels like he knows more than his dad? Did you and your dad ever have that point?
Oh, well, probably. Later, my dad, he was a good racer, but he wasn't the type to travel around. Of course, in the 70s and in the 80s, you didn't. Very few people traveled around and went racing, but he did some racing. He did a few series and stuff. I remember one was it was in Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois, and he did it was called the Triple Crown series, and he did real well. And in fact, he was leading in points in Freeport, Illinois was the last race, and I wasn't there. He wouldn't let me come along, but he had to. I think he just had to get in the top 3 of this race and win the points, and that was a big deal then. And I remember him telling me that him and Darrell Dake got together, and my dad spun into the infield, and he had the exhaust that come out right in front of the right rear tire, and when he spun into the infield, it just packed the exhaust full of dirt, and he lost all his power, and he was running, I think, second or third in the race, and he just barely finished, so he didn't win the points. But that's about the most traveling he ever did. And he went to Florida once, and I remember, racing and stuff. But other than that, he just raced the local tracks 3 nights a week. And then when I started the modified stuff, that's kind of when I tried to go on my own, because I've always raced in his stuff, and he was helping out a bunch. I couldn't have done it without him. But I just had ambitions to, I want to race, and I want to do this on my own. I still needed him to use the shop and everything, but and he kind of bucked me on that. He says, "I'll just keep running my stuff." I go, "No, I'm going to do this," And so when I started running the modifieds, I found my own sponsors, and and I still used a lot of his tools and equipment that way, and the hauler and stuff. But I was lucky enough to get enough money rounded up to put a modified together, and then.
And that's when you really got to kind of branch out on your own. Yeah,
because I was racing, the Chateau Speedway here in Lansing, Minnesota. Is only 10 miles down the road. They had the IMCA modifieds, and then at Casson, which is Dodge County Speedway, they had a modified series, but it wasn't IMCA sanctioned, but it was kind of a runoff of that. So I was racing, a couple nights a week with my own car and the modifieds, and there's a lot of the late model guys, well, my dad did a little modified racing, after I started it, and a couple of the late model guys around here, they got modifieds because the late models were just getting expensive for them, and we had about a dozen cars, and when I would go over to Dodge County Speedway, and guys like Ron Jones and Leroy Sharkey, they're a couple of really good runners, and I'd run good and win a few races, and I knew they were good, and I just thought to myself, if I can run with these guys, I bet I can run with about anybody. So as soon as I found out if somebody had a $700 to $1,000 race to win, within 5-6 hours, I would go to it, and it did very well. It had some good luck, and so then it's just kind of expanded from there, I guess. Of course, modifieds nowadays are a very big class, and
yep.
We race for some good money, and you got a lot of late model guys, and even NASCAR guys that run in it once in a while, so that just makes it that much better.
Mark, we got to take a break, pay some bills. We'll come back. We'll continue our conversation with Mark Nobel for the Legends of the Dirt Series. We'll be right back here on the Front Stretch.
We have all been there before. Broken car part in your hand and some snot-nosed punk behind the counter has no idea what he is talking about, but he guarantees that this part will fix your car. You pay an arm and a leg for the replacement, get it home, and sure enough, it doesn't fit your car. Now, learn from your mistake and give an experienced salesperson at Kosiski Auto Parts a call today at 402-731-4592. Kosiski Auto Parts will get you back on the road with your arms and legs still attached.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
Get ready for the victory lap as we make our way into Turn 4 on the Front Stretch. Presented by Joe's Karting. Online at joeskarting.com.
Heading into turn number 4, just about ready to wrap up this latest Legends of the Dirt series. Talking with Mark Nobel. Make sure to join us next weekend. We'll talk with Willie Kraft. Then the following weekend, Super Bowl Sunday, we'll do the Playland Speedway show. And then the following weekend, February 8th, we'll wrap up the Legends of the Dirt series with Playland Speedway show number 2. But before we do all of that, let's continue our conversation with Mark Nobel.
Mark, you mentioned going to the modifieds, and you started traveling 4, 5, 6 hours, and you won 3 IMCA Super National Championships. The thing I remember in the middle 90s, as you said, they had a lot of big dollar shows, and your name came up a lot in the winner's circle. I remember Beatrice had one, I think, in the fall of 96, and you won that, I think was supposed to pay $25,000 to win. So there were a lot of those shows, and you seemed to do very well in them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's in '96. I'm glad you reminded me of the year, but I remember the race as well. They started having big money shows. It started out at 1,000, of course, and then went to 5, and there were some 10s, and heck, there was even some $50,000 races. And that year, I had a very good year in '96. I remember because I won that one in Beatrice, but they were starting to pay so much money that they were relying on the car counts, and they were telling us, man, if we don't have 100 cars, we can't pay the purse, And I was fortunate enough to win a couple of them, but a lot of times they cut the purse on us. But it's it was getting out of hand. Everybody wants to race for a lot of money, but sometimes to pay $50,000 to win, and then the guys that don't even make the feature get $100. That's to me, that just isn't right. Because I've been on both ends of the stick. I've been lucky enough to win a few, and I've had some bad luck where you don't even qualify. But they really changed. I don't know when, but it was before '96. But when guys would start traveling, because they're paying such big money, I mean, it's naturally you're going to get good drivers look at it and say, "Man, I'm going to go take a shot at it." So yes, did, yeah. I know that Beatrice race, they cut the purse on that after I won it, but I still made good money. It's just that year in '96, I know when I was racing a lot of big shows, I think there was 3 or 4 of them that after the race they cut the purse, and I added it up one time and I lost about $30,000 in winnings, which I never had to begin with. But it's money they said they were going to pay and they never did. But it's really straightened out a lot. Now there's a lot of good paying shows. With the USMTS, they're 2,000 to win on up, and now even the IMCA they've got a lot of $1,500 shows or $2,000 shows. So it's such a, to me, the modified is such a good class because it's expensive, to run the A mods or the USMTS or the IMCA, but it's just, I don't know, to me it's more, I say, realistic to race for $1,500 than to race for $25,000, that kind of thing.
Talking with Mark Nobel for the Legends of the Dirt Series. Mark, I always love asking this question because you always get the most colorful answers out of people, but are you a superstitious guy?
Yeah, probably am, I'm not superstitious, not nearly as much as Kelly Shyrock and Willie Kraft, I know. Growing up watching my dad race, he always had a white car with green numbers, and many years ago, green was a big no-no. That's bad luck on a race car. So I think that's why my dad put it on there, and I've had very few cars that haven't had green numbers, so I've always had that. But there was a time I can remember, I would do certain things before a race just to do them because I thought it was good luck. But I know there's a lot of guys that are really superstitious. So anymore, I don't think I am, because I just believe that what's meant to be is meant to be. And there's a time I'd get rubbing on somebody or pushing, and something I wouldn't come out on the good end of it. I'd get all wound up, and I just learned a long time ago that it's just not worth it. Now I'm a pretty intense guy. Once I get on the track, I haven't changed that way, but to lose my temper is, I like to think that it doesn't happen very often anymore. But everybody out there, we're still racers, and we still get pretty wound up. But I just appreciate the stuff I have, and the years I've had, and hopefully I'll get to race a few more years. So,
well, not being superstitious really opens you up to being able to eat chicken on race day, quite frankly, which is one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, exactly, and peanuts. And I remember one time I was on the way to a pretty big race. It was 1,500 to win. It was a long time ago, and we had peanuts in the truck, and the guy that normally doesn't come along was right along, and he just couldn't believe we were eating peanuts. I go, what's the big deal? He says, I'll show you what. When I get out, I'm going to throw peanuts in my car, and I ended up winning that. But I know there's guys that don't eat chicken on race day. Yeah. They won't shave on race day.
It surprises me that I didn't realize peanuts was one of them, but there is plenty of green at racetracks, and there's always chicken and peanuts being served. So for being a superstitious sport, the racetracks aren't helping the drivers much.
Oh, no. Well, peanuts, I think you can make good money on them when you're selling them, so I suppose that's why they have them.
I love a six-pack of beer and a bag of peanuts. You can't get much better than sitting at a dirt track than that.
Yeah, that's right. No, but, I don't. Like I say, there was a time that I was kind of watched what I did and stuff, but that was a long time ago, and now I don't even think of it, I guess.
Mark, did you ever have a moment in a car when you were actually getting pretty worried that maybe you weren't going to make it out of that car alive? Was there a scariest moment you've had?
Oh, yeah. Once it's in Denison, Iowa, and it's a big half mile, and
yeah.
I was leading the feature actually, and I just got the white flag, and as I went past the flag man, my engine blew, and it blew really bad, and it blew all the oil and water on the exhaust, and it literally went into a ball of flame.
Wow.
And on a half mile, you're probably going 100 miles an hour or more, or whatever, and I was going into turn one, and the engine blew, and it just went into flames, and I was totally in orange. I couldn't see nothing. And then the oxygen went away because that's how hot it was. In fact, it blistered. I got stickers inside my car with family names and little sentimental things, and it blistered the stickers. And if I wouldn't have had my gloves, my neck brace, I'm totally covered with protection, and it singed my eyebrows and eyelashes and melted my face mask. But
jeez,
and actually burnt my driving suit. But and you think of a lot of things in a short time when you can't breathe, and it blew so bad that it broke the rear end, so it locked it up, and then the car spun backwards, and then all the flames went away from me, and I don't get scared in a race car. I believe, or if you're afraid out there, you don't belong out there. But at that time, I guess I was scared because the oxygen was gone and I couldn't breathe. I got out of the car, and the numbers and the stickers on the outside were all blistered, and it took me about 10 minutes. I'm sitting there thinking, man, I was so mad because I lost that race, and then I got looking at the car and thinking, you know what, that was close, and it kind of hit me.
Was it hard to get back in the car after that? After your next race, did you kind of think, oh, I don't know about this?
No, I've never been afraid to get back in, and I rolled real bad once down in Salina, Oklahoma, in a barrel roll, and I remember getting in the back of the ambulance, and the car was just junk, and I literally don't remember getting out of the car, and when I got in the back of the ambulance, my guy that was with me, or one of them, because we were racing the next night, and I think. We were in Salina. We were going somewhere in Arkansas, but his name was Gary. Oh, Gary, can we get that thing fixed for tomorrow? And he just laughed at me. He says, no. But and that was a pretty bad roll because. But no, I've never been afraid to get back in it. You got to be thankful though that you have a good roll cage and good safety equipment because you're prepared for a crash. You surely don't want it to happen, but. I just look at it like, I'm better off here in this race car than driving down the interstate, that kind of thing.
You're probably absolutely right. Anything we're leaving out, Lee, or did we cover a lot of it?
Mark, do you have any idea? I know it just seems like, for years, Mark Nobel and modifieds were synonymous. How many races did you actually win? It must have been a ton.
Well, I'm pretty lucky. I was, when I started out, I was just, like everybody else, I just wanted to race, and but when I started out, there was a guy from Rochester, Minnesota, that watched my dad race and then stuff. And then when I started, he kept watching me, and he was the type that always took stats, And I can't remember what year it was, but is probably 20 years ago now. But he because I'd see him at all the races. He'd follow me and watch me, and he asked me, Mark, how many races you've won? I go, no. I go, I don't. I should have kept track. The early years I never did, but after I've raced about 10 years, and income tax stuff, you always kept wrote everything down.
Yep.
And he goes, well, I have from day one, and at that time it was 597. And,
wow.
And I go, no, I wish you would have told me that.
There you go.
Now you got to go for 600.
And I thinking about it, and I have one over 600, but I'm just fortunate that this guy, kept documenting everything, and he watched me race. And I mean, if he wasn't at the race, you watched in the papers, and if I won or got second or last, whatever, he wrote it down how I did. And
I knew it was a big number because your name was synonymous for years with modifieds.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I've just been blessed. You know, I grew up with it. My dad taught me a lot, and you know, when I went on my own, I've always been lucky enough to have good people around me, and you know, it takes a lot of work. You know, it takes money, of course. We all know that, but you know, it takes more time than money. You know, you got to have money to go race, but if you don't put
who is your toughest competitor in the modifieds? Guys like Ron Jones?
Yeah, I got to say Ron, and you know, Kelly Shyrock's been tough, but in the early years, Ron and I we got after pretty hard. That was quite a rivalry around home here, and you know, and you know, I'm glad to say that Ron and I are good friends now, and you know, I've been, I don't know, not enemies, but I mean, him and I have had our differences. Kelly Shyrock and I have had our differences, but I can honestly say that we're good friends because, you know, I think they respect what I do, and I surely respect what they can do. So you're always going to have that with rivalries or, you know, when you're a competitor. But Ron is, he taught me how to win, that's for sure, because that's one guy I wanted to beat all the time.
Well, Mark, we appreciate your time. We've taken a lot of it, and definitely a guy who deserves the moniker of Legends of the Dirt. Mark, have a great 2015. We appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Thanks a bunch, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Have a good one, sir.
You bet.
What was his nickname? I thought I heard him mention it.
I'm trying to remember if he had one that was really, prevalent. I do know that Ron Jones and Mark kind of made Minnesota the real hotbed, and it still is in the USMTS type modified, Northern Iowa, Minnesota. So
yeah,
they were two very tough customers.
Well, Lee, another weekend down, another weekend left to go for the Legends of the Dirt Series. We'll be back next weekend to talk to Willie Kraft, and then the Playland Speedway shows. We'll launch the first hour on Super Bowl Sunday, and then the following weekend we will wrap it all up with Playland Speedway show number 2, hour number 2. We hope you can join us. As always, if you missed any of the Legends of the Dirt Series, you can head over to the Joe's Karting YouTube page and find all of our shows. I think actually almost every show over the last 2.5, 3 years is posted on there. So if you ever want to go back and listen to some of the old Legends of the Dirt series, you can always do that. You go back and listen to some of them from earlier this year, like Steve Francis, Charlie Schwartz, Kurt Hansen, John Gerloff, some great names we've talked to this year. And as always, Lee, it's always great sitting down and talking a little bit of dirt racing with you, and I always learn a lot.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We'll be back next weekend to do it all again. We'll talk to Willie Kraft for the Legends of the Dirt series. This is The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Max I. Walker has been providing great service to the Omaha area for nearly 100 years. With 23 convenient locations, it's easy to find a Max I. Walker near you. From dry cleaning to laundry to uniform rentals, Max I. Walker is here to make sure you look your best. Max I. Walker has been a proud supporter of local dirt track racing since 1974. From Sunset Speedway to Adams County Speedway and Legends of the Dirt like Dave Chase, Glenn Roby, Ron Tilley, and so many more. Give Max I. Walker a call today or head to maxiwalker.com. Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.